Welcome to our Salon number 62, The Future of Feminism, with our main speakers, Paola, Melchiori, and Angela Dolmetsch, in the Maternal Gift Economy Breaking Through series, hosted by the International Feminists for the Gift Economy. Today, we'll have Genevieve Vaughan, Peggy Antrobus, and Angela Miles responding to the speakers' presentations. We're very, very glad you've taken the time out of your Saturday to be with us. And let me say happy Earth Day, though every day should be a happy Earth Day. I'm Letecia Layson, your moderator. I'm going to give some short introductions of all the speakers. Paola Melchiori is a feminist theorist, activist, and writer, author of books, articles, and videos on feminist issues. She created a nationally and internationally free space of critical thinking based on the model of free universities. Her full bio will be available on the website, but with so many, I'm just going to give you a short snippet. Paola joins us today from Italy. Angela Dolmetsch joins us from Colombia. She has a law degree from La Universidad San Buenaventura and a PhD from London University. Her thesis was on materialism in Colombian politics. Peggy Antrobus is from Barbados, currently in Canada. She's joining us from Canada today. She is a Caribbean feminist activist since the 1970s and was involved and has been involved in programs to advance women's rights, first in the structure of government and later in the academy, and now as part of the feminist-led women's movement. She's one of the original founding women of a non-governmental agency at the UN called DAWN. That's the acronym, and I will let her tell you what that stands for. Angela Miles is a founding member of Toronto Women for a Just and Healthy Planet. She was one of the members of the International Feminists for the Gift Economy Network, who helped craft a statement that you'll find on our website. She is a member of the editorial board of Canadian Women's Studies. She joins us from Canada, Toronto to be specific. And last but not least, Genevieve Vaughan. First of all, our gathering has so much to do with Genevieve's theory of the maternal gift economy. She is an independent researcher who lives part-time in Italy and part-time in Texas. Today, she joins us from Rome, Italy. She has created in the past a multicultural all-women feminist foundation for a compassionate society and was the founding mother of the Sekhmet Temple in the Nevada desert, which continues today. We're so pleased to have that. And an author of many books and many, many articles. So welcome all of you. We're so excited to have you with us. And I'm going to hand this mic over to Angela D, because I see there are many of us in the room today, and we're excited to hear what you have to offer about the future of feminism. So Angela?
Thank you very much to you all who have accompanied us in this number 62 Salon. And thank you especially to Jen, who has made this possible for us to be able to talk to the world. Thank you very much. Today, I am going to talk about the future of feminism. And I have chosen Colombia in the Global South as an example because in the last century, thanks to the efforts of the women social movement, we succeeded in getting a constitutional amendment, which was the quota law, so as to break the glass ceiling and have women in the positions where decisions are taken inside the patriarchal state. But not just when women. The quota law establishes that 30% of top government officials have have to be women. And in the position is decided from a group of three, one of them has to be a woman. In fact, nowadays, in most government departments, both in the national, regional, and local level in Colombia, there are more than 50% women, and the present general attorney was chosen after a lot of opposition from the extreme right from a group of three women. Why women? Let me show you this graphic. The psychologist Carol Gilligan concluded that in her studies, women work with the ethic of care, while men work with the ethic of justice. The ethic of care is to each according to their needs, while the ethic of justice is to each according to their capacities, under which the patriarchal world has been ruled since matriarchy slowly receded, leaving the space for patriarchy to take over. In other words, the capitalist patriarchal state feeds on the exchange economy, the economy of greed, agroindustrial production of food. One example is the way we have been fed on sugar, because it's the most profitable crop, not the healthy for humanity. Parallel to this, as Friedrich Engels puts it, the matriarchal family gave way to the nuclear family, private property, and the state. In this scenario of greed and justice, the world is quickly moving to its destruction, as we have seen recently. War. Are we too late to establish the matriarchal state? We have the philosophers, the theorists. Heidegger Abendroth proposes that we establish the matriarchal family. Genevieve Vaughan has taught us to live according to the maternal gift economy. Mothers breastfeed their children and don't ask to be paid. We receive the gifts from Mother Nature, and as Jen says, we give every day, since human beings are by nature homo donans. But greed, accumulation, and exchange distorted human nature and turn us into capitalist societies. In this utopic work of matriarchy and maternal gift economy, ecofeminism will rule, and there will be biodiversity, agroecology, and people will live in maternal gift economy eco-villages, where there will be mothers of both sexes and societies of peace. In Colombia, the introduction of quotas boosted the promotion of many competent women who were working at lower levels of government or in the public service, such as Ingrid Betancourt, Dilian Francisca Toro, Claudia Lopez, Francia Marquez, Lorena Ramirez. Colombia's history is one of continuous war and violence. A few months after the end of the War of Independence in 1819, a series of internal conflicts erupted. At the turn of the 19th century, liberals and conservatives were fighting the Thousand Days' War. During the 20th century, guerrillas on both sides of the political spectrum battled in the countryside. Between 1940 and 1950, La Violencia, a civil war between liberals and conservatives, was responsible for thousands of deaths. People were brutally murdered without regard to sex or age. The mass migration of people from the countryside to the cities created shanty towns. Poverty, deprivation, and resentment, coupled with institutional collapse and the breakdown of the rule of law caused by the drug economy, was the hallmark of the 1980s and 1990s. Low-intensity warfare and civil disorder prevailed until the early years of the 21st century. The drug economy corrupted the revolutionary ethics and its principles, transforming what were once ideologically rebellions into drug finance business, whose main concern was unchecked profit, as the state struggled to reestablish the rule of law. With little success, irregular armies from across the political spectrum took the law into their own hands. The peace agreement with the FARC guerrilla reached during the mandate of Juan Manuel Santos, 2010 to 2018, could not be consolidated due to the lack of political will of the right-wing government of Iván Duque, 2018 to 2022. The Special Jurisdiction for Peace, JEP, whose function is to administer transitional justice and hear cases of crimes committed in the framework of the armed conflict, struggled to fulfill their function. Other aspects of the peace process, especially the situation of the reincorporated combatants, are only partially fulfilled, leading to complicated situations, such as the creation of a new guerrilla group called the FARC Dissidences, which are in dispute with the ELN, Ejército de Liberación Nacional, and paramilitary groups for control of the drug trafficking routes and together have subjected some regions to crossfire, which the government seems to be powerless to deal with, affecting the people living in the rural areas and causing forced displacement. Ex-combatants as well as leaders who defend human rights are continually assassinated individually or massacring groups. Women's participation in the debacle is minimal. Men commit 95% of the killings, and the presence of women in the warring factions is small. Women have played a small part in military response to the war. There is no known participation of women in important guerrilla positions. Women's efforts to enter public life have been long and tedious. From the Spanish conquest until the time when women gained the right to vote in 1958, women were only marginally represented in public life, and then in special circumstances where they were mothers, wives, sisters, or mistresses of public men. The social habit of machismo, violence against women and poverty, have permanently conspired to discriminate against women and belittle their capacities as political leaders. How far the 5 women that I have chosen for this conference have applied the ethic of care and are prepared to practice the gift economy and are peace leaders inside the Colombian patriarchal society? Ingrid Betancourt was elected to the House of Representatives in the 1990s through an innovative campaign combining gender and breaking the conventional paradigms. This young woman handing out condoms on street corners, saying that corruption equals. The electorate was seduced and voted for her en masse. In her 8 years as a congresswoman, she became famous for exposing several corruption scandals and for publicly denouncing President Samper for his alliance with the drug trafficking mafia. She appealed to Colombians' conviction that women politicians are more honest. Her popularity as an anti-corruption agent led her to become a presidential candidate in 2000. Ingrid Betancourt has effectively appealed to international as well as Colombian feminist stereotypes. Her autobiography, first published in French, charmed the political establishment in that country, which adopted the image of a fragile Ingrid fighting to defend Colombia on her own. When FARC guerrillas kidnapped her, the international community strongly condemned the Colombian authorities for failing to provide Ingrid Betancourt with adequate security. The Uribe government's initial inability to release her and its refusal to consider the humanitarian exchange of Ingrid Betancourt for FARC prisoners cemented her international image as a martyr. Her rescue, along with 14 other hostages in the Operación Jaque, led by Juan Manuel Santos, the Minister of Defense, where not a drop of blood was shed, was one of the great successes of the Uribe government and his policy of not negotiating with the guerrilla that led to his second election as president and the polarization of the country between those who advocated a military defeat of the FARC and those who supported a negotiated peace. It was this that finally prevailed and led to the 2017 peace accords and to Juan Manuel Santos as president being awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. Kidnapping changes people's lives. Ingrid Betancourt was absent from politics for 20 years. She had written several books and was at Oxford studying theology. She returned as a candidate for the presidency in 2022 with a novel platform, not only against corruption, but to make Colombia the first green country in Latin America and to end the fiscal deficit with the money recovered from corruption and carbon credits. She was defeated in the primaries. Dylan Francisca Toro began her political career as mayor of Guacarí, the heir of her grandfather, who was mayor 6 times. Her medical career has served her to exercise the de facto ethic of care in the different positions she has held. Between 1995 and 1997, she was Secretary of Health of Valle del Cauca and health consultant for the IDB. She ran for governor of Valle del Cauca in 2000 while pregnant, but was not elected. Between 2002 and 2012, she was a congresswoman, being appointed president of the Senate. During her term, she created the Women's Caucus, which it included women from all parties, and which turned around the possibilities of introducing laws in favor of women. In 2016, she was elected governor of El Valle del Cauca, a position she held competently for 4 years, handing the governorship to her former campaign manager, Clara Luz Roldán, who was elected with the highest vote for governor of the department, proving that Dilian Francisca Toro has a political capital of her own. She sponsored the Nachira Eco Village, a matriarchal gift economy project with 3 houses that had changed the life of 80 women and their families. In 2020, she was elected as president of the Partido de la U, or National Unity Party, a position that has always been held by men. In 2024, she became again governor of El Valle del Cauca. Claudia Lopez is lesbian and is married to Angelica Lozano, a senator for the Partido Verde or Green Party. She began her political career as a student promoting the 7th ballot that between 1989 and 1990 promoted the National Constituent Assembly of 1991. She joined the Green Party and was elected senator, standing out for the criticism of corruption. On the 27th of December 2016, she announced her candidacy for the presidential elections, becoming the first pre-candidate of the Alianza Verde Party. The same year, as part of the coalition formed by the Polo Democrático, Compromiso Ciudadano, and Alianza Verde, she was Sergio Fajardo's vice presidential running mate and came third in the first round. In October 2019, she became mayor of Bogotá and the first elected woman by popular vote, also as the first lesbian mayor. She established in the city of Bogotá the blocks of care for women where the maternal gift economy was put into practice. Francia Marquez is a feminist, and her struggle has been for women and the Afro-descendant communities that she considered to be enslaved. She ran in 2018 for the House of Representatives from a movement with a very unique name, I Am Because We Are, and with her own style, using an inclusive language whose most important phrase is I represent the nobodies of this country, that is, those who do not count. She ran for the presidency in 2022 and campaigned as Gustavo Petro's vice presidential candidate, being elected as the second woman vice president of Colombia. Gloria Inés Ramírez considers herself a feminist. Since her university days, she has been a militant of the Communist Party. It hurt her heart to see the abandonment of children, hunger and misery. She fought her cause from one of the most chauvinist institutions in Colombia, the trade unions. She was president of ECODE, the Educators Union. She was senator for the Polo Democrático for the period 2006-2010 and repeated in 2010-2014. She was appointed Minister of Labor by Gustavo Petro in 2022, and as the highest ranking minister of the same party as the president, she was the first woman to hold the presidency of Colombia during the president's temporary absences. These women share qualities such as a strong bias towards nonviolence, use of non-traditional methods of consolidating and using power, and a strong reliance on moral nuance, driving the political and personal positions. The future of feminism is how far a critical mass of women in the patriarchal state could introduce the matriarchal gift economy theory, ecofeminism, to change the state from within. And with the collapse of the nuclear family, the matriarchal family, which already exists de facto in many families, have become women only to take over. Let me show you now this short video.
Yo soy madre, cabeza de hogar. Y entonces como pues el arriendo es demasiado caro y uno para levantar la familia y todo eso es muy duro. Y nosotros vimos esto desocupado, muchas familias, y nos atrevimos a ocupar este terreno. Y zancudos, malos olores, nos tenemos que aguantar los malos olores y todo eso, porque cuando crece el río también tenemos peligro. La bendición de Dios sería uno tener su casa. Uno piensa más que todo para los hijos, porque los hijos es la meta de uno.
En Colombia, el conflicto armado nace y permanece ligado a la generación y distribución de la riqueza y del poder político. La desigualdad económica ha profundizado las formas de sobrevivencia de la población. Como resultado de la guerra y el desplazamiento forzado de las zonas rurales a las zonas urbanas, las mujeres han entrado a conformar los cinturones de miseria de las ciudades, donde llegan con sus hijos o porque han quedado solas o porque han sido abandonadas como el resultado de la cultura machista que hace que los hombres sean esporádicos. El 33% de los hogares colombianos tienen a una mujer como cabeza de familia y los índices de pobreza indican que el 70% de las personas en pobreza extrema son mujeres que sobreviven con unos ingresos de $1 diario. Por el hacinamiento y la pobreza, la violencia contra la mujer ha adquirido proporciones epidémicas y el embarazo de las adolescentes es un problema de nunca acabar.
En un predio de 3 hectáreas en el municipio de Palmira, en Colombia, 88 mujeres cabeza de familia vienen cultivando la tierra durante los últimos 6 años. Las mujeres han hecho sus propias huertas para tener seguridad alimentaria. Con la ayuda de artistas internacionales y un premio otorgado por un hábitat, los jóvenes de Nachira han elaborado el proyecto La vida es un teatro. Con retal de mosaico, las jóvenes han construido el piso del ágora o centro de encuentro y de recreación para niños y adultos, decorado con elementos alusivos a la ecoaldea. Muchas de las mujeres y jóvenes de Nachira vienen de áreas rurales que han sido afectadas por la violencia. Por eso, las mujeres de Nachira están en el proceso de generar un proyecto único y una comunidad ecológica, solidaria y sostenible.
Hace muchos años quedamos desplazados con mi familia y éramos pequeños y nos tocó llegar a la ciudad de Cali y vivir en un barrio de invasión donde la vida era muy insegura y pues había muchas dificultades. Ahora aquí me siento muy feliz de vivir aquí en la ecoaldea Nachira, compartiendo con mi familia, con mis padres, con los niños, con toda la ecoaldea, con toda la comunidad. Nos sentimos felices, aquí tenemos nuestra vivienda segura, tranquila.
Desde hace 12 años pertenezco a la Asociación Mujeres de Cabeza de Familia del proyecto Nachira. Eso hace que trabajamos por una mejor calidad de vida. Hoy vivo en mi casa con mi familia y soy muy feliz porque aquí conseguimos paz, tranquilidad y aire puro.
Gracias a la vida que me ha dado tanto, me dio 2 luceros que cuando los abro perfecto distingo lo negro del blanco y en el alto cielo su fondo estrellado y en las multitudes el hombre que yo amo. Gracias a la vida que me ha dado tanto, me ha dado el oído que en todo su ancho graba noche y día, grillos y canarios, martillos, turbinas, ladridos, chubascos y la voz tan tierna de mi bien amado. Gracias a la vida que me ha dado tanto, me ha dado el sonido y el abecedario, con él las palabras que pienso y declaro, madre, amigo, hermano y luz alumbrando la ruta del alma del que estoy amando.
Well, now we hope you like it and we see what you think about it.
Thank you, Angela. Paola.
Hi to everybody. I'm ready to go now. Letecia?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So I generally don't say that I'm speaking from Europe, but these times, after what is happening around, and you'll see why, I have to underline that I'm speaking from this agent of colonial devastation that was and is Europe. Okay, so the future of feminism, I will take it from what is feminism today, in my view, and what our feminism can be from this present. So in the history of European feminism, we imported, in a way, feminism from North America, and we transformed it mainly on an opposition to the criteria of emancipation, which was the main word, equality and emancipation of the US feminism, towards a theory of liberation. And after the 70s, we cannot speak of one feminism. We have to speak of many feminisms, which is how this spark that started again in the 70s went around adapting, transforming itself according to different situation, cultural, economic, according, I would say, to the priority of women in every country. However, I still think, despite many things we can say about the fact that being a woman really and having equality is not a guarantee of anything today, but we can see some common characteristics that I still think define feminism in our sense today. So one is that the quality of its diffusion, it was a spark, it was a virus, it was a fire. It didn't go through many theoretical proselytism way. It communicated as a fire, and that means something about it. And I would say that apart this common recognizing themselves from women in this kind of a specific oppression that also goes through the life, to the private life, the spark meant really some communality across every culture. And one thing is, I would say, epistemological. We realized that making visible some characteristics of the work of women do, some position in every society, we were challenging the structure of the society, the knowledge of the society, the organization of the society, and also at the beginning only asking for inclusion. In reality, when we started to be included, we realized that we were dismantling a whole structure. And this dismantling became also very dangerous, as we see today from the killing of women that going around everywhere. So this commonality came to light very clearly.
Okay, we seem to have lost Paola. Hopefully she'll log back on in a second.
Okay, sorry, I don't know. I was saying that this combination of conflictuality and commonality became clear in the UN conferences and became the beginning of what today we call intersectionality, which at that time was the seeing that we couldn't only see one condition, but we have to put together all the differences among women in every place. So in that time, I would say that we Europeans didn't understand much the possibility and the complexity of all that, and also the deep conflictuality of power among women. We were still thinking of ourselves, and I have to say that in this moment, about the land of rights versus the land of greed that was the US at that time. So the European dream was, and I say that because of to Gaza, where I will end at one point, what is happening in Middle Eastern, the idea of Europe came after the Second World War, never again a war, never again a nuclear, what happened in Hiroshima. It was a dream of rights, of peace at that time from the founders of Europe, which completely was canceling the colonialism, the white supremacy, what Europe has done to the rest of the world. So which today is becoming more and more clear. So after that, everything has changed in the last years. It was still a moment of expansion of capitalism that was extending its productive forces with externalizing the weight of that to the third world. So Europe didn't realize very well. We could struggle for quota, for equality, but we didn't see which role the Western societies have had and have in capitalism expansion. Today, we are in a completely different situation. Somebody says we are in the senile crisis of capitalism. Today, we cannot externalize anything. We have devastated the planet. And the idea of expansion, again, without limits, which was the motor of the capitalistic society in that time, is finished for everybody, even from the authors of that. So all this devastation, which was colonial, which was economic, which is of all kinds, climate, comes back to us. And it's when there is a communist thinker that spent all his life in prison, Antonio Gramsci, who said, when one order is ending and the new order is not ready, monsters come in the landscape, in this gray area. So today, I think for these times is the time of monsters with which the new feminists or the feminists that we have produced in these years have to confront. And having in mind that we cannot think in the same way as we were thinking in the time of, in the end of that century. So we have to take back some of the threads of that time and see what is still available for us to change this situation and to go forward. I would say that the consciousness, they say also in Marxist theory, comes always after the real change, and it tries to hold on the past, not to change. So Europe and US still are realizing this change and this devastation and this sense that the limits of expansion, of unlimited accumulation and unlimited greed is finished. But they resist as they can. Somebody said Trump cannot be explained in normal terms. So this consciousness that tries to hold to the past expresses itself as absence of reason. I think what we see from this side of the world is complete madness. We don't have a leader's thinking. We have wars that are plays where people play signals and kill people. We have completely absence of rationality. And this is a sign, at least in some analysis which I share, of the end of this order, which is the capitalistic expansion order. So if we see that now, the one thing that feminism will have to confront is how can we deal with that? I think the private history of women try to escape individually patriarchy, cutting their marriages, for example, and the expansion of femicides tells us how painful this transition will be, how hard it will be to break this order and do something, not to be completely submerged by the irrational forces of the end of the capitalism. They said that a senile crisis that doesn't accept old age becomes mad. So they say the white brain is becoming mad because they are losing completely the power, but they don't resign themselves to that. So what in this context, which is very clear in the wars, right? We have 2 wars now in Europe, and in the poverty that is, and in the absence of leadership, what can we do? One thing which is clear to me is that, I mean, to people who study that, is that we have to realize completely how this black heart of Europe that has colonized all the world was black. It's not the land of rights. We were the beginning of this violent colonization, violent creation of poverty. And until this is not clear to the social consciousness, this change will be very difficult. The wars that we have now in Europe, and let's say Gaza, in a way, what happens in the Middle East, at the hands of the Israeli Zionist state, shows very much, without any, and I think without any doubt, and is now coming back also to European consciousness, that these victims of the Holocaust, these white victims, are killing people also on the basis of racism, of supremacy, of despise of the other. And this is a cultural shock that will produce a lot of changes, I think, because it's in a way, it was unthinkable to see what is happening in Gaza, to see this genocide produced that has been starting before the 7th of October, but in a way before it was invisible. This is now showing the heart of this of our so-called civilization. So the impact is very strong. And women, in a way, in this context of war, are not very visible. And so one of the things that feminists knew, let's say the feminists of these times, which is going to a dark age, they say, has to see how we can retake some threads of the past and make them produce a different analysis of what is happening, and a different analysis of who can do something in this context, and the different analysis and practice in this situation, which are desperate. We are working in the context of this group also on doing that together with other women. And it's one of the most complex challenges, because when violence erupts so strongly, to reshow the value of care, the value of resistance from women's, and the value of women's voices is very difficult. You see the victim and you don't see the resilience. So the second thing that is important to do is to show what is happening behind the scenes of war and violence and bombs. What is going on in terms of resistance of other values. So this is to say Gaza is in a way a paradigm of a concentration of what is at stake today. Another thing that is going on that we have to confront is the combination of the models of people who try to resist to the greed, to the devastation, economic, climatic, and so on, is to try to build different models. Let's say with Nashira, we have one of the three main models of how people are trying to confront these times. One is pure survival. Who can, like the rich people, they try to put themselves in an island or in the space. Then we have a lot of new projects in different places like Nashira, and I think, and also we think that examples like Nashira, who are women-led, and also try to set up a different economy and different sharing, has to try to confront with the commons. This is the third model, which is full of potentiality that is going on, which is conditioned to using, let's say, the Nashira model to condition the states to re-put public services. The state as guarantee also of commons for people in various places, because otherwise the possibility is that these small villages cannot survive the attacks they will come. In my sense, feminism, I gave you just, I think I'm finishing my time. Diane, can you help me?
You have about another 10 minutes.
Okay. So I think that in this moment, and with that I go back to feminism and Northern feminism, the voice and the leadership in feminism, so in dealing with this situation, will be that of the Global South. And I don't say that, but because you can see what is happening in Europe and also in the US. Women in power, we have women in power. We have the results of quotas. We have 3 women in power in Europe, which one is the general banker, another is the president of the EU. And the message is, war is coming. So what we have to do is to buy more weapons, to have more armies, to create an army more powerful than Russian. This is the message of women elected in Europe on the base, and in many other countries, on the base of equality, not asking women to be feminists, so to express clearly other values, other behaviors, other attitudes. So in a way, the feminism of emancipation in Europe, and I would say also in the US, is showing all its limits. And the feminism of other values, and with that we can go to the gift economy are showing their possibilities. It's not by chance that the last Ni Una Menos, the last movement, because the big movements are finished in generally, but the big movements that are still alive and mean something symbolically are the Iranian women and are the women from the South, from Latin America. Ni Una Menos was born in Latin America from the Argentinian women. And now in Italy, in Europe, Ni Una Menos, not one less, is the leader of the possibility of women to do a different politics in Europe. So you see, there are these travels that where progressive values change origins. I say that the Global South will be the leaders for the future feminists because they have the communities still. They have the connections still more clearly. And they have the ancestrality. My friend Maria Suarez would call it ancestralities. I mean, they can still be in contact with something that we have tried to erase as colonialist, but not completely. While in our societies, this link, this deep connection with the roots are completely cancelled by consumerism, by by depression. What is in the Northern society showing the damage is, for example, this epidemic of depression. And so all the studies say depression is hitting young people. They don't see a future. So the Fridays for Future is the only movement in Europe that is thinking of the future, and they don't see much coming, much happening. But the one is like all the roots to the sense, the meaning of life are cut by consumerism, by this now technological invasion. So there is a philosopher that in this before the Second World War was saying when the human powers are in a good sense are dying, the human invest everything in the technology. Then the technology becomes the master, and it impoverishes more and more the human minds. So I think in the North and in the Western, it's very difficult to produce the sense of the future because too many roots have been cut. But I really hope that those societies who still have a linkage with ancestral values, with the land, can lead us towards different values. And they will start, I think, even if they have gone through the devastation we have done to them. In that context, the gift economy that was created by Jen and that we try to look for and to see everywhere is really a message for the future. The more and the more we will be making visible, and that was also the beginning of feminism, making visible what women do and are, and it was not accepted and recognized. This will show what are the values, the feelings that give meaning to a life. Because in the Western society, the meaning of life, with all the landscape filled by all these messages, all these non-values, are lost. So this work of making visible what really means to appreciate life is a work that feminism, and in that sense, the gift economy can do. But this path to go there will be, I think, very difficult and very, very, I can say, very painful for everybody. And I think the message that from the film of Angela before me is one of the possible futures that will start from other places. And from our sides, we have to unmask more what we did to others, what that the fact that what is happening now in Europe is the result of what has started many centuries before. And this is a really an educational work that has started only recently after the wars, the two new wars. And I think Gaza, in this sense, what is happening in Palestine is one of the main schools to try to rethink what really is important and where we have to go and what we have to go back to understand. So this is my message, in a way, that really what we started to see in the UN conferences and is now showing its impact and its importance. And this methodological message of the gift economy as the real economy of women and also of men, if they realize that, is what has to be practiced in these times, and how, from where new feminism has to think from. I don't know, I'm not a specialist of matriarchy, and I don't take this here. I would say the project, we have to have men in this project of matriarchy, and let's think about having a clear consciousness of what we don't want to see in terms of crisis and in terms of potentiality and in terms of subjects of this potentiality. I think I stop here.
Beautiful, Paola. Yes, thank you for that perspective and for linking to Angela's film as a possible future, and the honesty in which you have your reflection about the deep and complicated historical length of history that people need to understand, those roots that need to be excavated, and that the maternal gift economy showed its face in the, as a women's economy in some of those larger UN gatherings, but it is the real economy. And that's what I hope to hear more of from the future of these things. For those of you who are joining us today, you may not know this, that part of the reason these 5 women were chosen is that they have been involved in feminism probably since the 60s and 70s. So we have about a 50-year memory of feminism coming forward. So with that, I would like to just open it up to the responders and see if they can shed some light and have their responses. And our first responder is going to be Peggy Antrobus. So Peggy, if you can turn your camera on and unmute.
Yes, so thank you very much. First of all, I want to express my appreciation for the 2 presentations, and I will be referring to them in my own presentation. But I want to start, and I'm going to ask Diane to put up my first quotation, So I don't know if you can see it clearly, yes. The first slide is a quotation from the network Dawn that Letecia referred to. Dawn stands for Development Alternatives with Women for a New Era. And it came from a network of scholar activists from the economic South, from Africa, Asia, Latin America, the Caribbean, and the Pacific. I have a slight correction. It was not part of the UN, although we spent a lot of time as a network in the halls and corridors of the UN, particularly throughout the 90s. I want to start with that quotation because it really is reflected, it takes what Paola said a little further, that there is and must be a diversity of feminisms, responsive to the different needs and concerns of different women, and defined by them for themselves. This diversity builds on a common opposition to gender oppression and hierarchy, but this is only the first step in acting upon a political agenda. This heterogeneity gives feminism its dynamism and makes it the most potentially powerful challenge to the status quo. I think Paola elaborated on how feminism challenges the status quo. It allows the struggle against subordination to be waged in all arenas, from the relations in the home to relations between nations. And it necessitates substantial change in cultural, economic, and political formations. All of this can be very disruptive, as Paola said. I wanted to start with that because I wanted to recognize and to say a little bit more about the diversity in feminisms. You know, all the way from the liberal feminisms of the West through Marxist feminism and radical feminism to South feminism, because I'm really here to talk about South feminism. Paola thinks that the voices have to come from the South, and to some degree, I agree with that. Because you have to take account of colonialism, white supremacy, and ecological extractivism if you want a feminism that can really respond to the conditions of today. Now, without using the word intersectional, Dawn never used that word intersectional. The analytical framework led by us took account of all of these issues, and it was a framework grounded in feminist political economy and an understanding of neocolonialism and racism. It was something new in the discussions and debates that took place among women and feminists in the spaces created by the United Nations from the 1980s onwards. Now, one of the conclusions of Dawn's analysis of these interlinked crises was that they led to a crisis in social reproduction. That is, in order to reproduce ourselves, human beings need food, shelter, social services, and personal security. I think that the maternal gift economy embodies these processes of social reproduction. The conditions for mothering, for social reproduction, however, are severely compromised by the two existential crises threatening us today. One is the climate crisis, and the other is warfare. And so it's not surprising that today a lot of us are focusing very much on what is happening in Gaza. And I want now to talk about a statement about feminism that came from a Palestinian feminist, because I think we have to look at that. Can I have the third slide, Diane, the third slide? It says, when we allow colonial feminist discourses and practices to shore up genocidal violence, militarized warfare, and the violation of indigenous lands, bodies, and lives, all of us stand to lose. The deep divisions between feminists in the wake of the widely reported rape of Israeli women by Hamas shows the limitations of that kind of a feminism that is individualistic and lacks a more holistic analysis. My own definition of feminism, and can I have the second slide, Diane, the second slide. My own definition is very simple, 3 parts to it. First of all, it's a consciousness of all the sources of women's oppression. So you can't just look at patriarchy, you just can't look at gender relations alone. So consciousness is the beginning, for me, of feminism. A commitment to challenge and change them, starting with ourselves, is the second part of my definition. I don't think that you can talk about feminism without a commitment to challenge and change them. Many feminists challenge and change those conditions only in relation to gender, only in relation to patriarchy. And they start with themselves. So it is very individualistic. The third part of my definition, in solidarity with women. So I think that for me, consciousness, commitment to challenge and change, and in solidarity with women is essential to feminism. If we want to project that into the future, given the existential interlinked crises of today, the climate crisis, the increasing income inequality, the rising authoritarianism, almost fascism, the collapse of the framework of international humanitarian law and the human rights framework itself, wars and increased violence, all of this embodied in Israel's genocide of Gaza, I would say that there is no future for feminism. There is no future for a feminism that is not intersectional, that excludes a critique of how patriarchy furthers capitalism, neocolonialism, white supremacy, and extractivism. I think that Angela's story of Nashira is the future. I think we do need to come back to the community. However, I don't think that even those communities can survive. When we think about Gaza, even that community level cannot survive the kind of destructiveness of genocide and of climate crisis. So I think you need that analysis. And that's my main comment when I think about the future of feminism. Paola talked about the spark, the fire, feminism as a spark, a fire. I think it's there, but I think unless it is intersectional, unless it takes account of capitalism, neocolonialism, and white supremacy, and extractivism, there is no future. Not even for that beautiful image that Angela gave us of Nashira. Thanks.
Thank you, Peggy. I love the way that you describe feminism. And for those of you, Diane, thank you for posting the slides in the chat so everyone can review them again. And let's hear from Angela Miles now.
Thank you. Wow, this is very rich, you know, and food for thought in terms of where we are and what is to be done. It's very interesting to hear Peggy's 3 senses of feminism, because I was in terms of Angela's and Paola's presentations, was interested in those ideas as well. I've participated and studied feminism for a long time, and I've tried to support the tendencies of feminism that I think Peggy's talking about, which integrate those 3 things. And in trying to define what I'm looking at when I'm looking at feminism, I found that I felt that all of the activism of women, by women who are defining the priorities and the values of the particular struggle, are relevant to considering feminism as a force, as a power in the world, and the potential of feminism. And that means that one's looking at the women who are struggling because their children have been disappeared. women, the Russian and American women who, and Russian and Western women who took their children's teeth to Parliament to resist nuclear testing to show the strontium-90 in the teeth. Those who are struggling against Arak alcoholism in Indian villages, and not to take time to give more examples, these struggles, the bread riots, women are in struggle constantly around key issues of life and our humanity everywhere. And there's a question of, now we also have feminist defined struggles, individual women who define as feminists and see this as a connected struggle. Women are oppressed, they're an oppressed group. There are specific women's issues: violence against women, unequal pay, abortion, reproductive rights. And a lot of society women are excluded from positions of power. Women are not equal. Now, of course, the women making the struggles grounded in community around specific issues, which may not be self-defined as feminist, know very well that women are oppressed. They're, in fact, less deluded than the women who have suddenly discovered that they aren't equal, that they're not just people, they're women. They're well grounded in being women, knowing that what the priorities are, and struggling as women. What distinguishes a feminist self-defined movement is a sense that this doesn't have to be like this for women. Add to the issues the fact that we can change this. And of course, many of those basic struggles also include a sense of that, certainly when there's a developing global movement and so on and so forth. Now, the self-definition, the definitions, so we have women struggling everywhere, and we have feminists. And both of those groups agree that understand that women are oppressed. And what distinguishes those powers, if you want to say, I think, is that the women doing it in their own context, around women's issues, in themselves, are doing that from values that are their own values as women. They're not doing it, okay, this is a part of socialism, or this is a part of it. They're out there, they're doing it. And what the feminist movement brings is that sense that it doesn't have to be like this. But not all of the feminist movement is grounded in those values that grassroots and women's struggles embody. So the feminist, the self-aware or self-defining feminist movement is a movement which has tendencies, and always they're the ones that are presented by the media, the tendencies to see it mainly as struggling against women's oppression and inequality, without challenging the dominant values, the definitions of what it means to be human, what is wealth, what is peace. There are the politics that do, in fact, recognize the connections between the roots of capitalism, colonialism, racism, those roots in patriarchy, those feminisms were very, very, very important and powerful and heard during a whole decades of global feminist enrichment, of really, really interesting connections. I remember when at the same time, and maybe even a little bit before, feminists in the economic north we're saying, we're challenging what capitalism, what our society had ever given women, at the same time as there were struggles to gain that status, to own one's own factories in the South, to not be colonized. In other words, critiques of the patriarchal, at this point, capitalist, neo-liberal capitalism, colonial system was coming in very interesting and different ways from women located in different places on that global system. And the learning was enormous. It was incredible. It was so exciting. And that sense of being women together with differences, but having a vision that we could be together, if we could see the depth of this thing and we could see all the many facets. We were all located in systems which not only oppress women, but every human being, including the men and the white men and the men who owned the industries, they were less than human. And this was a parasitical, extractive system, not only from women, but from all humanity and all of nature too. So I think that the challenge is how, in this context, when I don't think that feminism is as heard, and I think is under pressure on all fronts, not just by the chaos that this kind of end game of this death, this system which denies life and women as the carers of life, the providers and givers of life, absolutely at its heart. We now see where that leads us, and we're all aware of it, and the excitement of seeing that. And in fact, in the presentations of Paola and Angela, hearing it, seeing it, naming it, and showing what the values and the possibilities that we need to ground the struggle in and move forward around. It's
2 minutes, really, Angela.
Yeah, that's really, really powerful. And I think to be conscious in terms of feminism, we need, okay, regionally, and okay, we need to take the list, but this question and all the things that Peggy listed are really, really important. That solidarity with women is a solidarity with women speaking as women, with that vision, that frame that is different. And it's always existed. It's existed in North and South. It's never been the only thing that feminism has been. And I think gift economy theorizing is what allows all of those struggling as women with those priorities to understand and to see how deep we have to resist exchange in itself, not just unequal exchange. We have to understand what at the very roots gender is. Gender is to construct a separate gender from the human or the mothering or the giving. And it's to prioritize that gender, and it's to use the whole of patriarchal history to devalue that, to keep it under control, to push it down, to in fact deny it, and deny the life and the relations and the connections that without which we can't survive as human civilizations. So to me, the challenge is right now to be able to embody in our movement and build in our movement those connections. And they are with the ground and with the grassroots and with all of those who are seeing the suffering and are in pain and seeing death of all of nature and just genocide raining down, and not only in Gaza either. I mean, this is an eye-opener, and this is for where women can weep and where women have to be heard. I mean, really heard. And we have to find a way for the tendencies of feminism that do know that speak as women and have those priorities. We need to connect. We really need to connect and feel the power from each other. There were brief shining moments and even decades when that growing understanding of the breadth and the depth of the issues and recognition of all the struggles was happening in a way that we have to find a way in these terrible times and hope that these are going to make it happen, because we need it.
Thank you, Angela.
Thank you so much, Angela. Yes, in these terrible times, part of what makes it even more complex now than it did, say, 50 years ago, is the massive amount of information and that is present every single day. And that input of information, unless one is highly disciplined, can actually crush someone, because there are so many things that are happening that appear to be devastating, which they are. And I would like to say that our salons, at least every 2 weeks, gives an opportunity. It's like an oasis in this information glut of negativity that creates an opportunity for us to actually experience a different way of thinking, challenges us to actually pause so that we can really critically observe the world and our own point of view, as Genevieve always reminds us, to shift into the new paradigm. And with that, I want to just hand it off to Genevieve, who's going to be our last responder. And welcome, Genevieve.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your words and your attention. And I think we're in a moment of such crisis in the world and leading to further crisis that we despair. Instead, there is a really deep alternative there waiting for us to embrace it and to carry it as women. And we can carry it as women because we have been raised to potentially be mothers if we're not ever, even if we don't ever become them. And so we have a kind of attention towards the others that can be elicited in order to practice a gift economy, a unilateral economy, and we're not always in it for what we can get out of it. We're not always wanting the kickback. And that is that in our makeup as human beings, we have all had mothers, we've been mothered, and so we have had to have that model presented to us, even if our mothers were not very good. We have been nurtured unilaterally by somebody, and that has brought us into the human community. Our exchange economy, our capitalism contradicts that all the time, and that is what patriarchy is based in. And we have allowed an alienation of males from the maternal model. And actually what we are is a human maternal species, and that we have lost that knowledge of ourselves, and that is what is allowing us to create this mayhem and this end of the world scenario that we're living in now, in which all the most horrible things are happening to people, not that we're not giving to them and satisfying their needs, we're killing them and allowing them to die. So it really is a terrible moment. But in this disastrous moment, we see the need for another choice. And that choice is there if we can just recognize it and bring it up. And I just thought, I was thinking before I would tell you all this little story of, I've been working on this idea of a maternal gift economy for a long time. And maybe it was probably in the 60s or something like that, 70s. I had this sort of vision, and I saw some extraterrestrials landing in their flying saucer, and they came out to speak to the population that was all there waiting to hear them. And they And the head guy came out and said, but doesn't anybody here practice the gift economy? That is the economy of the whole universe. And you are the only planet where that's not happening. And well, at the time, so I said, I talk about the gift, but it was very, very small. So I wasn't able to do anything at the time, but we can all recognize that there really is a deep alternative. And by trying to understand it and believing in our female selves, and for men, believing in their selves that they got from the maternal model, we can unite to undo this terrible patriarchal capitalist war famine model that we have. And I think that's got to be the way out. I think it is a way out if we can just do it.
Thank you, Jen. Okay, well, that was really dynamic. So let me just check in with our speakers now, Angela D. and Paola. Do you have anything else that you'd like to offer now that you've heard from Genevieve, Peggy, and Angela M. before we open up to the questions? We have a little bit of time left, but not many minutes. We have about a half hour. Paola, anything you'd like to add?
I would like to say something at the end after the questions and other people coming in.
Okay, great. We'll let you have some closing words. Angela D, can you unmute, my friend? Unmute, Angela D.
Okay. I would like to add something about matriarchal families, which is different from matriarchy. Matriarchy is sort of the opposite to patriarchy, the same sort of the same sort of power. But when we talk about matriarchal families, we are based on the idea that the nuclear family is basically collapsing. The nuclear family, man, wife, and children is collapsing. And in fact, I think all over the world, but I can talk about Colombia, that more than 30% of families now are matriarchal families because men are sporadic. They come, they live for a while, and they go, and then there are families which are ruled by women. And at least in the global south, where families are very strong, so they end living mother, grandmother, mother, daughter, and the young children are there. And that is the way, in a way, families are constructed nowadays because of the collapse of the nuclear family. When we talk about matriarchal families, we have to talk about what Heide says, and that is not a family without a man. That simply, what she says is that the group, the house is first of all, fatherhood is an act of faith. She starts by saying that. So basically, the daughter, the women's lineal descent. So those children that are born from that mother are descended from her. And in fact, what happens in the matriarchal family is that the daughter has a room where she can receive boyfriends or whatever. And in fact, I think there is a matriarchal society that works like that. And I think it is, I don't know where it is. I think it is in China, somewhere. And what happens is that the young daughter has a room, and there, whatever boyfriend comes, and then she can have a relationship with him, and it doesn't matter if another one comes, so there's no jealousy or anything like that, or whoever is the father. Finally, she is the mother, and that child, it has the same lineage as the mother, and the sons are, the rule of father is done by the eldest son of that family. So that is how Heidi Gardner-Abendroth defines the matriarchal family. And in fact, as I say to you, de facto nowadays, many families are facing the collapse of the nuclear family, because I imagine that there are many, many people who have been divorced, who have been married, and they are still mothers, but the nuclear family is collapsing. Yeah. So I wanted just to add that. And I also wanted to ask Angela, what is it that she called the feminist values?
Yeah, I wanted to add one thing. I forgot something.
Okay, Paola.
I didn't say one thing at the end because I was trying to simplify perhaps too much, but I really think in these times as feminists, we need a global analysis of these times that shows the connections that between among different aspects that don't seem to be so different. For example, in Gaza, we see the combination of killing mothers, killing children, ecocide, killing the land if it's not enough. And so we have to see connection between militarism and life. What is cancelled, what has to be re-seen that we don't see. I think the time for also the end of the family, right? And the fact that inside families now there is the attack on abortion right is majestic. In Italy, we had yesterday a law that in every women consultory for women problems and maternity will have one representative of the pro-life movement paid by the state to, like in Poland, to make the women who want to abort listen to the breath, to the heartbeat of their children, obligatory. So, and in that we have to become very complex and refined in our analysis. For example, see the richness of motherhood as a paradigm, and in the same time being able to defend women's right to freedom and self-determination. So it's these contradictions we have to be able to put light on, to deal with the complexity of this world. So the exchange between North and South also in feminist consciousness is very important today. Even if really I think the global South has some roots that we lost, but we know perhaps some tricks that, I mean, it's important to exchange towards a global analysis also. And then this can support also these courageous experiments, local experiments, to see where this can go and how to defend it.
One thing, matriarchal families don't need abortion. Matriarchal family wouldn't need abortion because the children will be looked after by the clan, by the group. You don't need to abort if you are a matriarchal family.
In the future. Okay.
You wouldn't be going to a party or something like that. You just will have, and the children are your children, so you have them whenever you want.
Thank you, Paola. Thank you, Angela. I just want to make a point of clarification. Heidi Gardner-Abendroth's theory and her writing is modern matriarchal studies, and in her definition of matriarchy, she goes back to the root of the word matri, mother, and archy, which is from the beginning. So what in this forum, when we use the word matriarchy, it is not the opposite of patriarchy. We are talking about originating from the mother, and that is modern matriarchal studies. And that is also at the core of basically Jen's theory of where the maternal gift economy comes from. And it's not gendered to speak of. It's the notion, it's a paradigm of viewing the world as if we were looking from the point of view of humanity and how humans arise with mothering at the center, and all caring is done by motherers, regardless of sex or gender. So mothering is a verb. A motherer is someone who actually mothers. Jen, would you like to just say something about that?
Well, yes, I think that's right in general. The values that come from mothering are other oriented. They're focused on the other, and the exchange interrupts that because it's quid pro quo, and it logically cancels the gifts. So we need to diminish the quid pro quo exchange mode that is the basis of capitalism, and go back to, or go down to, or to the basis of the values that are human values, and I believe also are the structure of the way we speak and the way we think, but we've just eliminated that through patriarchal academia, and we have not even imagined that that is where what the source of our human capacities is. So we need to rethink all of these abstract ideas and go back to the original giving and receiving, very simple way that is then complicated in a lot of other ways. So.
Thank you, Jen. I just want to make note that I'm going to put in the chat. Heidi Gutner-Abendroth actually did Salon number 59, Visioning a Matriarchal Future. So she talks about, really the notion that you can't have a future of feminism without a matriarchal future. And from what Jen just said, then tying into feminism, Jen's definition and Heidi's definition of what a matriarchal future is like, is the view in which I think we could actually shift the world. That's just my opinion. And now, I think Liliana has a question for us.
Yes, I have a question. Do we have to educate men differently, or is it too late? And then another question is, if you think about this, what do you think will be happening in 10 years or in 20 years? Thank you.
Definitely nowadays there's some woman called new masculinities. I don't know where that is also in the global north, but at least here in the global south, men are being considered to be new masculinities, and that is in a way that they, as I say in my conference also, and Jens also says, they will also be models of both sexes, and men would actually be able to think and to work with the ethic of care instead of the ethic of justice, to each according to their needs. And what happened in 10 years? Well, we will have a peaceful world, and in 20 even more, and we will finish the wars, and there will not be any more wars, and we would do off with Trump. I'm sorry, I'm going to talk about politics, with this man in Israel, and with the other one, in Russia. No Putins anymore. We are going to have men who don't want war, men who actually want peace and want to keep the planet and care about the ecology and care about that.
Thanks, Angela D. Paola, would you like to respond to that question?
Yes, I can add something. In 10 years, we can be swept away, perhaps. Who knows? But anyway, be men. You have to get there. The problem is to get to men motherers and to men who are conscious of what they resist to, or why they kill women as soon as a woman shows a sign of freedom saying, I don't want to continue with you anymore. In all the countries, even in Iceland, who did this wonderful strike recently, where the country was dark, complete, you know, if you want to see really what women count in terms of psychologically, materially, in all kinds, they switch off the country just doing the little strike. We always talk, but we cannot organize that worldwide because it's too much. But in a little island, 300,000 people, they organize. They can, and also the prime minister did the strike. The country was black, pitch dark in all senses. Men, but this time it was not on work, on equality. This time was against violence, men violence, even in country of equality, of recognition of women, etc., etc. So to get mother or man, they have to do what we have to do. We did. We looked at ourselves, at our position, and we saw also the complicity with men. We saw the being, you know, attached of more models of being dependent, of having, you know, advantages and disadvantages. You have to go through a work of consciousness raising that is painful also for men, because they have to accept to lose their privileges. This is not a straight line. It's a very difficult feeling yourself and your desire, and the desires men have been educated in. So this is for men. And the other, I don't remember the second question. I don't remember the second question. I think it was the 10 years. I don't know. I mean,
yeah.
we have to do what we have to do, and then who knows?
Yes.
Yeah, and also the part of the question was, is it too late to re-educate men?
But what happened? I don't know. Perhaps yes. I don't know. The killing is we have to give to this killing another voice. So perhaps if this becomes like feminism, this could become a movement of consciousness of men with the same spark going around, with the same capability to awake, conscious and lucidity. Perhaps it's not too late. I don't know.
There is a movement of new masculinities. You join. Wow, the men in this group probably joined the movement of new masculinities. It exists, and then and it's not something. It's not an utopia. It already exists, and maybe in the global north they should also do that movement.
It exists, but Angela, we thought at the beginning of feminism, I remind you, sorry, Peggy, I give you the word right away. We thought that men, that is all, as they also live a limitation of their being, they would join very quickly and be relieved to have women in another position. Instead, this didn't happen like that. And so the resistance of men, we have to see, that was unexpected. It's 40 years for Me Too, and it's 40 years for men to do some little movement, still.
Yes. You know, one of the challenges that we do have because of the technological age, that our conversation is truly global. And so I want to just make note of that we are speaking to a global world, and indigenous communities all over the world, that some of those still have very strong roots where they would have matriarchal communities and matriarchal men already. So their men already know. So it's not all men everywhere. We need to just situate the conversation or situate the acknowledgement that communities where there are matriarchal men with values that align with ours are also being oppressed and suppressed. And that in a true matriarchy, as defined by Heidi Gutner-Abendroth, is an egalitarian community where women and men share the responsibility for the communities with different work roles. And gender equality has to do with the respect and honoring of each of those roles, that they share the burden of creating a culture and a future together. So I just wanted to say that because there are plenty of men that I've been around who struggle because they are like us. So Peggy has her hand up.
I just wanted to say that I think it's not just men that need education, it's women as well. Because, you know, that what is happening today in Gaza just reminds me that it really, that the conditions for caring, for taking care of each other, for taking care of the earth, don't exist anymore in Gaza. They don't. And so to me, the education has to be about seeing the connection between what we want to do, we want to care for each other and the earth, the connection between that and the forces that are making it impossible for us to do that, even to have our small spaces of caring. So some education for women as well as men, to see the connection between capitalism, extractivism, colonialism, racism, and the difficulty we have in creating a maternal gift economy. Well, the maternal gift economy is there, but the difficulty we have in maintaining that, in maintaining a caring economy, and an economy that also cares for the earth. It just won't happen unless we understand that it can't happen under a capitalist, racist society or world. So I always have to come back to the analysis more than ever. Today, we need to see those connections.
Yes, absolutely. Jen or Angela M., do you have any input perhaps that you'd like to give to the question that Liliana posed about education and maybe what you see in 10 years or 20 years from that?
Well, as far as men are concerned, I think men would be much happier with a gift economy approach and with the values, the maternal values, because the kinds of aggression, violence that so many men perpetrate is certainly not making them better people or more adapted to a community or happier. And it is destroying everything. And certainly that as a capacity of a person is not normal. It's not sane. And so we need to all go back to our Homo donans species being, who we are as a species, including men, is a species that is a gifting species and not an exchanging species, and it's not exchanging blows. It's not hitting in order to be stronger than the other. There is a whole different kettle of fish. So that's what it is.
A different kettle of fish. I'm hungry now. Okay, we're getting towards the end of our time. It's kind of surprising because there have been so many wonderful things shared here. I want to just check in with our other responders, Angela M. and Peggy. Do you have some last words? And then I'll go to Angela D. and Paola. So, Angela M., do you have any last words you'd like to say?
No, except these are all very important issues, deep. And we have this struggle, this masses of women. It's going to take masses of women connecting and understanding the depth of the thing and what we have to share and the basis on which we can try and change it. So, and we need feminisms that Peggy's talking about that are capable of that reflect that. All of the ways that within one system, we are all located and responsible for it and suffering from it and need each other to change it. So let's carry on and
Thank
resist the attacks. I want to say that what we're facing worldwide, if we're the way that the subject woman is under threat, is seriously challenged as a place to speak from in many of the more developed areas of the world, right? Which you might say is the West. I think it's more pervasive than that now. So
Thanks, Angela M. Peggy, did you have any last words you'd like to leave us with?
No, I just want to quote again from Vaughan. Feminism, its dynamism makes it the most potentially powerful challenge to the status quo. I really believe that feminism has that possibility. I think that there are men who are feminists as well, but I do think that you have to see those connections, and feminism allows you to see that, because feminism makes that connection between personal and the political, what happens in the household, what happens in the larger society. I would like to see that kind of feminism. And I think with that kind of feminism, there could be a much brighter future.
Wonderful. Thank you, Paola. All right. Angela Dolmetsch, do you have some last words you'd like to share with us?
Yes, I just would like to say that in fact I have 5 grandsons. I don't have any granddaughters, and I have tried to make, or not to make them, but that they actually agree with what we call new masculinities, and this is a movement in which many men can join, because the idea is that we have mothers of both sexes, and basically there are quite a lot of men who do have who practice the ethic of care. So not all men are violent and all this, but basically that movement can come and can really and truly become a fact. And I just want to tell you that there's a group of Italian women who is planning a course for 1 month on the gift economy and what is that sort of society, and it's going to take place in Nachira, I think next year in January. I think they are planning. This is with Francesca, and it is open to both women and men, and it's going to take a month, and it's going to be in Nachira. So if anybody wants to join, please get in touch with Francesca. That is a way of promoting what we call the new sort of, or the future of feminism, which is in a way to create sort of local communities. Small is beautiful. You can create local communities, and that they should be scaled. The idea is, for instance, we are proposing that the model of Nachira be scaled as a part of the agrarian reform in Colombia, and we don't know whether they would agree to that. I mean, we have been trying to scale this project, and it hasn't been easier because there's a lot of opposition, but anyway, we are there.
Thanks, Angela. Would you remind me, how old is Nachira as a community right now?
Nachira is 22 years old, and it is successful because if women have gone from, it's a community directed by women. We don't have pregnant young, we don't have any teenage pregnancies. There is no violence. We haven't had any murders in a country which is very violent, and basically, even though we have men have become mothers also.
Wonderful. And I want our viewers to know that you're in this planning stages of another community. Is that correct?
That's
Yes.
right. We are looking for, well, we are in the planning. We already have the project, but we are missing the land. So that is what we are looking for.
Wonderful. So Angela D is an example of a woman who actually works in this arena, this arena with the global people, but she is in solidarity with the indigenous women of her community, uplifting them and bringing them, helping them to create a sustainable future for themselves while she is in the world creating a sustainable future for all women. So it's very exciting to be able to see her participation. And this is what I think we've been sharing here. We need to do it in a multi-pronged way, both locally, creating the solidarity and uplifting all women to eliminate the oppression. So thank you, Angela, for your really good works. Paola, would you like to leave us with some words?
Yeah, I remember all of a sudden that a friend of mine is talking about creative desperation. Same thing, meaning being very lucid on what is not working in our work and putting also our attention there. So we need, for example, to do the connections in, as I was saying before, globally. What is happening in Gaza between only seeing the sexual attack and not seeing the attack to global life is one example of this that we have to do. We have to be able not to be fragmented, not to be only seeing women in their little so-called oppression as women in what has been traditionally seen as the women's oppression. We have to see things with new eyes, with more complex eyes. And so we have also to found empathy. One of the disasters of our time is the killing of empathy. So, which is one aspect of the mothering, right? To be able to see the child needs. So in my view, we have to look for this complexity, not sectoriality, defending women as women, but seeing what we represent in terms of the chain of life, and to be able to found empathy and mother love, because it is also disappearing. It's there. That is why I say that the gift economy is a methodology. It's not only a content, it's the capability to see in every situation what is hidden and tells us what the potentiality is from the point of view of women.
Thank you so much, Paola. All right. I just want to thank our speakers today, our presenters, our main presenters, Paola Melchiori and Angela Dolmetsch, our responders, Genevieve, Vaughan, Peggy Antrobus, and Angela Miles. Always and forever behind the scenes, Diane keeps us up and going. We are just grateful that you're here. Liliana and Judith for organizing questions. We didn't have much time for them, but it always lets me rest easy knowing that you're there watching the screen so that I can actually be paying attention to what's going on as the moderator. On behalf of the International Feminists for a Gift Economy Network, I want to thank each of you who've joined us either today in the Zoom or by watching this video. And I want to encourage everyone to use this recording as a talking point. The future of feminism and what it looks like isn't written. It's in your hands, in your conversations, in the excitement that you have, in your commitment that you have, and let's make that future a matriarchy. as defined by Heidi Gutner-Abendroth. A matriarchal future with a maternal gift economy. That's a future that will definitely be peaceful for everyone. If you'd like to be notified of our upcoming salons and events, please do sign up for our mailing list at our website, the maternalgifteconomymovement.org. There were lots of really interesting comments in the chat. I want to just let you know that the chat, and there are 2 questions in the Q&A, will be given to our presenters and our responders, along with a list of the people who have registered, so they may be able to match the questions and comments to your email. If they have time, they may respond to you directly. If you have questions and comments, please do send them to us at maternalgifteconomy@gmail.com. In 2 weeks, we're very excited to continue our both retrospective view on feminism and future of feminism on May 4th with Frida Werden and Maria Suarez Toro. Genevieve, can you give us a little insight into perhaps what they're going to be sharing with us on that day?
Yeah, well, they have both been in women's media for many years, for 30, 40 years. And Frida probably longer than Maria, but Maria started very early on also, and has been doing other things too since then. But they have given a voice to women around the world, international women, on radio. And so they have a huge, let's say a huge amount of programs that can still be listened to, and there are a voice also for history and for women of the future to hear. So, yeah.
Thank you. I think the most interesting thing that Frida has shared with us recently is that she's going back, and some of the talks that she is reviewing from the 80s and 90s are still so pertinent today, and she's reissuing them. So it'll be very exciting to hear what she has to say. So watch your inbox for more details. All right, my friends, it's that time. I want to thank you for joining us. And it is that, Earth Day. So celebrate Mama Earth, get out in the sun, enjoy it, and let's all work towards peace. Everyone, peace.
Peace.
Take good care. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thank you so much. Bye for now.
Thank you, everybody.